Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Live from Super Soul Farm, it's Wisdom of the Sages, our daily yoga podcast. Your daily yoga podcast. I'm your host, Raghunath, with my good friend and co-host, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show. We are here live on Zoom, as well as a regular podcast, but we have about, not bad, 54 people this morning. We're still trying to get unjet lag from our long journey through India. I'm actually fully over it. My jet lag is coming back. I have no jet lag. I can take it. Going there, that's when I start falling asleep standing up. But that is my kapha pitta constitution. I can just deal with it. Now, Kaustubha here, my partner in crime, is a vata. And these vatas can't sleep. They're winding themselves down. They're drinking various herbal tea to slow it down at the end of the night. I'm like, wired, lay on the bed. I'm out cold. That's my gift. Kapha pitta.
Good for you. You deserve it. You work hard, you know.
Every breath I take is hard work. I'm always on. I'm never off, and I'm okay with that. How are you? Anything I should know? We're in the midst of a freezing rainstorm here in upstate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I didn't even go outside yesterday. I'm in my little bubble of my apartment. Everything's good in here.
Okay, good. I have low battery in my phone. I have no Bhagavatam. Without Mara here, our executive producer. By the way, if
you know what Mara was doing during the show yesterday?
What?
Snorkeling.
She was snorkeling.
Yeah.
What nonsense is that? Anyway.
I knew you would have something to say about that.
No, we love Mara. She's our executive producer. If you want to join the show live on Zoom, where you can see everybody's beautiful faces, it's sort of fun. It's sort of like that Brady Bunch thing where you're looking at all the Jan and Greg and Bobby. They're all people from Europe have no
Hollywood
idea.
Squares.
Hollywood Squares. People from Europe have no idea of these American television show references, but Americans know what I'm talking about. You can see
at least ones that aren't too old.
Yeah, actually. What am I talking? I'm dating myself. But anyway, Wisdom of the Sages podcast. No. Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. She will hook you up with your Zoom password. And then you can join us live, or you can be one of the many people we call the others. Yeah. The others listen, but we never know they listen. And if you're listening live, you get to join the Telegram, sort of like a message group where we all message each other and bother each other all day, transcendentally bother each other. Just tell us what we're doing, what's going on, what they're going through, their realizations. We love that. It's nonstop talking all day long. If you love distractions, we're ready for you.
You know what else I remembered was people can use that same email address to write questions if they want us to deal with questions on the show.
Yeah, we like that too. Also, if you're on the Zoom group, you can just write in on your chat board. There's a little chat board there. If you click the chat button, you can write in your questions.
And you know, I remember there were a couple good questions going way back to when we were in the Eco Village that we never dealt with. Maybe we can go back into those and pull them back up.
Okay. I lose questions as soon as I don't read them. So if you have them saved somewhere, let's do
I'll dig them up.
All right. That's great. So let's see. I've got this. We are in a great spot in the Bhagavatam. I didn't lose it. It's on my phone. I'm reading from my Wisdom of the Sages phone. Christmas gift. All right. Shall we start, my friend?
Yeah.
Oops. I don't know how to turn that off. Okay. Before we start, we do these mantras. It goes like this. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam vedyam sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Come on, cat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of our conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto
Narayan Rishi,
the supermost human being, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki By regular attendance in classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam, all that is troublesome to the heart will become completely eradicated, and loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs will become established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, we are reading from Canto 1, great place to start. Chapter 5, verse 16.
16. No, 14.
14. Sorry about that. Mara sent it to me this morning.
Yeah, she said 14.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I was reading ahead. That's what.
Look at you. Very good.
Okay. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place.
I think that deserves a commentary dip.
It's so funny. Whenever I'm like, no commentary here, you're like, oh my God, did you see all the juicy stuff in there?
Well, it's
over my head. Like, well, that makes no sense to me. Next.
Well, that's when you need a commentary dip, right?
That's why I need you. That's why I need you.
But this is...
Sir, read between the lines for me while I let this cat out of the room.
Does your cat have a name, by the way?
Well, I have two cats. This one is called Apollo.
Okay.
And the other one is called Buttercup.
Okay. So, the previous verse was mentioning the vision of Vyasadeva, that he was a person that was capable of entering into samadhi, yogic samadhi, and having a vision of, we'll hear about his vision. We'll hear, ultimately the highest vision that he has plays out in the 10th canto where he'll describe the pastimes of Krishna. But what will come up more quickly in the Bhagavatam is, for instance, the descriptions of the creations of the universes and so on. But he's got the vision. He's got the ability to see what others can't see in trance. And that vision was being glorified in the previous verse. So now this is saying now there's other stuff that one can see. That's seeing the spiritual realm. Now what about the material realm? Whatever you desire. Now there's a context here. Vyasadeva has written a lot of literature. You could call it religious literature if you wanted to. It's yogic literature. You could call it religious literature. It was literature that on different levels was meant to help people take steps forward. A lot of it had to do with how to be a good materialist, right? Better than being a totally selfish, rotten materialist. Let me write some literature that can help you be a more good materialist, more grateful materialist, more generous material. And that's going to help you move towards spiritual life gradually.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
The interesting thing in a sort of a culture devoid of spirit, we think that all our good fortune is we're creating it. We're creating it by our activities. And although that factor of action, my endeavor, has something to do, like people say, I make my good luck. You know what I mean? I don't look for good luck. I make it. There's actually a type of karma that we have. And anybody who studies astrology, studied Jyotish, they realize there's a certain amount of karma that we're dealing with on a regular basis. Yeah. And it's not just by our endeavor that we have what we have. Although, these, self-help gurus want to promote it. You can do it. You just are a moment away from your success, and you just got to think bigger, and you're living in a box, and you got to just push through it. And there's something to be said about all these wonderful people, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, and stuff like that. At the same time, endeavor isn't the only factor of action. You're also what are the 5 factors of action? There's time,
God.
Right?
Put me on the hot seat, are you?
I didn't mean it to. It's the 18th chapter of the Gita. But there's 5 factors of action. Yeah. And one is the time and the place. I mean, come on. Yeah. How many people were doing great punk bands in the 70s that never went anywhere, like the Buzzcocks, say, if you want to throw some music.
Well, they went somewhere.
Well, they went somewhere, but not like Green Day. They just did it like a decade earlier. You know what I mean? And then Green Day, on the final Seinfeld episode, they played a Green Day song. It's actually for a punk anthropologist. It's like unbelievable, you know? Right. So it's one of these things that if it's at the wrong time, that's also something to do with it. Sure. It is the endeavor, but it's also the time and the place. Yeah. What if you were Green Day, but you were in South Korea or North Korea? No one cared.
There probably is a Green Day out there that we haven't heard of.
I know, and no one cares. Right. I mean, Parmananda can vouch for me too. We've traveled the world and seen so many great bands who no one's ever heard of. They just like never heard of. So it's not just the endeavor; it's the
and time. Some bad ones that everybody's heard of.
And right. So we are constantly running around by our endeavor thing. So, but the spiritual culture, and this is the Vedic culture of India. This is what they're talking about at the time right now. They understand there's some type of reciprocation with higher forces. And therefore, a lot of the Vedic texts, we say, oh, we study Vedic thought. We really don't. We really study Bhakti. Vedic thought is so vast and broad. It constant interacts subtle energies, demigods, higher beings. And it's trying to, we use things like pujas and worships and gems and rituals. And, if you hang out with a card-carrying Hindu, a deity can vouch. I'm going to get nailed one of these days. But there's so many rituals you have to do, and it's all done. It's figured out at your time of birth, because at the time of birth, and Americans don't do this for the most part, but you get your child's astrological chart done, and you see where their weaknesses are and where their strengths are and what demigod they should be worshiping. Matter of fact, Aditi, where's Aditi when I need her? You get named according to your astrological chart. It's not just like, I'm looking through a book of girls' names. It's not like that. You get named according to some astrological name. You got like 10 choices. Yeah, so we're not doing it's
here's a DT.
I hear her poking around. DT, come on, verify me here. Verify me.
We get given when a child is born, we get given based on the chart, astrological chart. We get given like initial letters that the parents are supposed to come up with a name from.
Initial letter. Interesting.
Initial letters. So, for instance, in my case, it was and some other 2 letters that I don't remember now.
Maybe D and T?
Maybe D and T. How about that, a DT?
It was actually like that for my brother. So it was Na, Ma, and Ta. And my parents combined it and named him Namit, which essentially doesn't really mean anything, which is very unlikely. Usually names mean something
usually names for some god, goddess, god, controller.
So in my case, it was and I was named Ashima first, but then my grandmother said she didn't like Ashima, and then my mom was like, okay, Aditi is something that we all are agreeing on.
DT, and another thing is you don't get the name immediately, right? They wait.
Oh no. Yes.
Yeah.
You have to do the chart first.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You got this nameless child for like a month.
And that's why you would see that Hindus have a lot. Hindu kids have pet names as well.
Like nicknames.
Nicknames. Yes. Because there's a period where the kid is not named anything. In fact, my mom was named Baby because the baby didn't have any name. So she's named
What
Baby.
was your pet name? That's the question we want to know, Didi.
Luckily, I did not have any. In fact, it's considered good omen to not have a second name. Yeah. So me and my husband both somehow don't have nicknames.
And that's how you found each other.
Yeah, this is because we don't have.
I think Raghu's doing this with his cat. He just keeps calling it the cat.
The cat. Well, yeah. Well, I wasn't going to introduce you guys to my private world yet. Thank you, Aditi. Hey, Aditi, can you unmute yourself a second, Aditi? Tell us about according to your birth, there's different rituals that you have to do. Like on Saturday, if you were born on a Saturday, you have to feed pigeons or something, or feed living beings. Or I'm serious. I'm not. It sounds crazy, but come on, throw something at me like that.
It is crazy, and
it's not crazy. It's just Americans are just like, we have no clue what's going on.
So
even devotees of Krishna.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I know, and what, like, I was born on a Tuesday.
See, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. I was born on a Tuesday, and so was my husband. And now there's a concept of being Manglik.
Of being what? Of what?
Of being Manglik. So
Mang-
Manglik, yes. So Manglik is like when your chart is like your astrological chart is so heavy that it says that your personality can essentially, I just know about Tuesday. I do not know about like all the other 6 days that exist in the thing. But in Manglik, your chart can be heavier for your partner. So what they do is that they make you marry a tree before you marry your partner, because it said that
you just blew Raghu's mind.
They make you marry.
Yeah, they make you marry a tree.
They make you marry a tree.
Both me and my husband are like married a tree respectively. We have our own.
May I ask what species of tree? Was it like an oak? Was it like a hardwood?
Good question. It was like a really old tree.
Anyway, I've never heard that. I was going fishing, but I wasn't expecting to catch Moby Dick. All you guys are just looking. Yeah, of course, she married a tree. Like, isn't anyone else like that? Is incredibly fascinating. I don't mean to even. It's just I was caught off guard by that. I've never heard that. But my point is that people actually study this stuff. It's actually, and it's almost like the difference between, I've got a pickup truck, and I have to drive to Baltimore. Okay, I have a pickup truck, and when you hear from these Bhakti Vedantas, that people really study the Bhagavatam, especially our guru, Raghunath Swami, and his guru, Srila Prabhupada, they are so focused in on the goal. And also because we're Americans, but they really just use that. The current is, you got to get to Baltimore in 3 hours. It's that type of urgency. And you hear it again and again. And Prabhupada's even criticized sometimes in his translations because he almost puts Krishna where Krishna is not. Now, if you study Sanskrit, you'll realize, Prabhupada added that. And it's not to his deficit. It's to him seeing the bigger picture of where you're going with all of this. So sometimes he'll take Ishwara out and put Krishna. Or he'll put, I can't think of an explicit example, maybe you can, Kaustubha. But he leads it like, look, you got to get from A to B, and you got 3 hours to do it. What Vedic culture does, I find, is, and it's to its come on, Kaustubha. It's to its
credit
to its credit, as well as can be problematic. Its credit is before it drives to Baltimore, it tells you how to put the key in the car gracefully. Turn, right? It opens up the engine. It tells you how the engine works. This is where the coolant goes. This is the carburetor. This is where you change the oil. And these people who are like Vedic scientists, they know everything about the vehicle. They know how much air is in the tire, right? Most of us who drive our car, we have no clue what the air pressure should be in our car, in our tires. We don't know we don't know how to change the oil. I just bring it to Jiffy Lube. I have no clue, right? These Vedic scientists, they know every detail, and they're going into details about things. Now, there's one problem, and you see this in the yoga community a lot. We spend so much time, if not the entire time, on how to put the key in the car. These people are just like anatomy nerds, which is important, right? It's important to put the key in the car. It's important to do that. But if I'm just spending hours, if not my entire life, putting that key in the car, it's like, come on, zoom out. Where are we going with our yoga practice? So this is to India's credit. It gives you every detail on metaphysics, spirituality, reincarnation. But if we're lost in getting to sattva or understanding Vedic sciences, or learning how to chant proper mantras with the proper emphasis on what syllable, etc., and learning how to play different ragas on the harmonium, or singing different ragas, or playing the what's that giant many string
Scales? Right?
No, what's the sitar?
Oh.
These are all like sciences in themselves, or studying astrology, or worshiping different demigods to help me with my good fortune. It's the equivalent of go to Maryland or go to Baltimore. You got 3 hours, but I'm taking so many detours, so many going around in circles, stopping off at Starbucks, going in to see a small village. It's like I'm not getting that. Life is short. Where am I ultimately going with this? So anyway, this has been a long-winded explanation, but Vyasadeva is explaining it here. A lot of the Vedic teachings are about breaking apart the car, finding out how to make this thing run most efficiently. But if we're lost in that, we're lost from the actual goal of the teachings. And if you actually study it objectively, you'll see there's a current pushing us all to bhakti, which is not even in goodness, sattva. It is shuddha sattva. It's out of this material world. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
Well, then I appreciate everything you're saying, but it would lead to the question, why? Why go into all of this about the key and so on? And to help answer that question, what I would say is that what's being recognized in all this yogic literature is one, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, the Puranas. They're all meant to bring you somewhere, but they also recognize that we all have our own psychological issues, and for somehow we're moving through this world, and part of the reason why we're moving through this world as an individual, disconnected from our spiritual self, is because we wanted to disconnect ourselves from our source. We wanted to, in a sense, kind of play the role of the source, you could say.
Play the role of God.
So if in the end, if the end game is to reconnect, but I have some psychological issue, I'm a little nervous about that, I'm a little worried about that, I'm a little adverse to the idea of myself connecting to a quote unquote superior being who's the root of all existence, and I'm just one of the many, and that root of existence is the one, and there's something within me that resists that idea, then I can't tell you just like, hey, jump on a plane and fly to Baltimore right now. I've got to give you a baby step to get there. And that baby step may be stop being so entirely selfish. Recognize that the sun, the moon, the water, the rain, the earth, that all of these are provided for you. Show some gratitude. And if you do that, we'll design the whole thing in such a way where you'll get more of those good things in life that you want. And that's what Vyasadeva lays out in the four Vedas, how to live a life like that. It's called karma, right? Mm. And then you might say, oh, okay, then, and after living like that for some time, I might realize, hey, whatever I get, ultimately I lose it and I feel pain. This world is actually a place of pain. I want to escape the pain. Well, then let me write the Upanishads for you and take you to the next baby step. Now I got you from New Jersey, and now we're over down towards Delaware or something like that. And there's books that are going to help you realize that you are spirit, realize that this material world is illusion, instill in you a desire to renounce the things of this world, and to try to break free of the attachments that you have in life. And that's another step. That's the next step. But really, they're all meant to gradually bring you to the point where you connect with that divine being, right? When you connect with that divine person again. And if someone doesn't have that resistance to that, you can jump right in there right off the bat. In a sense, that's what Prabhupada does by translating the way that you're mentioning. Hey, and that's exactly what's happening here in the Bhagavatam, is that Vyasadeva is being instructed by his guru, who's saying, you've spent so much time giving these baby steps, karma and jnana, and you've neglected to describe that final goal in great detail. Do that here in the Bhagavatam. You've got the vision, you've got the ability, focus on it. Because when you don't focus on that message, and then we get the verse that we have today, whatever you desire to describe that is separate from the vision of the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind, as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Even the piety, even the ritual, the good rituals, in the end, they're just agitating your mind. I recognized Lord Shiva, or I recognized that the sun is being provided by Surya. I did some ritual to appreciate that. I got some good karma, but in the end, that karma ran out and my mind was just agitated again.
There's such a deep faith and interconnection with the universe, with the celestial realms, with demigods in everything they do. But we want happiness, we have to appreciate higher beings. Yeah. And every activity in this world is done. I mean, you still see this. You go to a place like even demons. You know, if you ever go to Bali? In Bali, they're always just doing their pujas. You go into a shop and they're not even looking at you because they're doing some puja. And they sometimes worship demons to appease the demon, to give them good fortune. It's got nothing necessarily to do with their own endeavor, or partially has to do with their own endeavor. But they constantly are in relationship with the universe and with nature. And forgive me if I laughed about marrying a tree. I was taken off guard. Hey, Kaustubha, Dana writes a good question. Prabhu, is this primarily a non-dual system or a dualistic system? This is a good question because a lot of people will hear that word thrown around, and it's good to clarify that. You want to share?
Sure. So again, this is all when everyone gets this concept, then everything in the Bhagavatam opens up. Hey, Sachi, look at Sachi over there.
She brought me some homemade almond milk.
Oh, nice. So ultimately what the Bhagavatam is teaching is dualistic, meaning, and what we mean by that is that we're an individual, that I will always be me, that Raghunath will always be Raghunath, that Sachi will always be Sachi, that everybody here will always remain themselves. And then there's another, and that's God. So there's dual, there's two, or more than two. Whereas there are interpretations of the Vedic literature, particularly interpretations of the Upanishads or the Vedanta Sutra. Those texts are rather cryptic, and they've been interpreted in ways that you could call monotheistic rather than dualistic, or you could call them non-dual. The idea being that any concept of individuality,
monistic, not mono. Monistic, not mono.
Monistic. Did I say monotheistic? I meant monistic if I did.
Monotheistic is like...
It means there's one God. But whereas monistic means that everything is one. That any conception that there's two, that there's me and there's you, that's an illusion. Any conception of form, that's an illusion. And that was a philosophy really spearheaded by a character named Shankara. And commonly in Vedic studies, there's a debate between the two schools. But what the Bhagavatam, the way that we in the Bhakti tradition understand it is that we get it. You could argue from both sides. But if you understand what's happening is that in the end, the author himself wants to step in and help you understand it. And that's what's existing here in the Bhagavatam. That if
I think the Bhagavatam is the unifying force between both schools of thought.
It clears it all up. It's saying that, one, before we get to the question of dual or non-dual, if you thought, based on reading the Vedas, that the goal of life was to incur good karma through ritual and piety, well, let me be clear that that's not the goal. And then further, if you thought that this whole thing was like a non-dual system where the goal is to merge into the oneness, let me clear that up here in the Bhagavatam too, so that you won't make that mistake. That exists, but there's something beyond that, and that's your connection with the root of all existence, which is a person that always remains a person. You always remain a person, and you can have a connection of divine love with that being, and all of our relationships in this world are a reflection of that.
And Dana, the example that's used, how can they both exist? And the answer is simple. It's like the sun globe and the sunlight. They both exist, but you can't have one without the other. You can't have the sunlight without the sun globe. And so, and in one sense, they're both the same. but in other sense are completely different. And when you have an impersonal conception of reality, or everything is one, everything is this oneness, this monism, it exists, it's real. In the same way I say the sunlight is in the room. It doesn't mean the globe of the sun is in my room, although the globe of the sun is a reality. And so in Bhakti, there's a relationship with the source, or the source of that light. And there's mantras to connect with that source. Like we chant Hare Krishna, or Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or Sri Ram, Jai Sri Ram, as opposed to when you're chanting mantras like Om, which is the energy of Bhagavan. How's that?
Yeah. We can always go more and more into this because it's a bit subtle.
It's a bit subtle. So anyway, this is what Vyasadeva's clarifying in these verses. People want to enjoy the material world. They're still, and they're not foolish enough to think that, yeah, it's just me, and I create my own pleasure by my activities. Wrong. We are so bound up by karma. This is, I think, the biggest illusion. We're so bound up by karma. We have no clue that we are sort of like in a rocket ship headed in a direction. We think we're steering the rocket ship. Karma is so powerful, and we're in so much illusion that we are getting things handed to us on a regular basis. And when people hear this, especially when the Christian missionaries heard this, they really debated with Indians when they first went to India. How can there be a loving reciprocation with a higher power if everything is predestined? So they say it's like this. We're on a airplane to Honolulu. That's our karma. Can't get off it. You're on the airplane to Honolulu. What you do on the airplane, that's your free will. You do have free will, but there are restrictions within that free will. And to the degree that we're bound, and this is why the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras speak about this a lot, to the degree that you're bound by Rajas and Tamas, your free will on that plane to Honolulu becomes limited. If I'm bound by Rajas and Tamas, right, how much free will does a person bound by Tamas have? Tamas means addiction, lethargy, laziness. They have no free will. If you're addicted to something, you've lost your free. You're not choosing heroin. You're tied up by it. You're in bondage by heroin. You're not choosing alcohol. You're being completely tied up by alcohol. You're losing all your freedom because of the alcohol. So to the degree that we're in Rajas and Tamas, and that's what the whole entire yoga system is about, controlling the senses, controlling the mind, changing your habits, changing your association. Why? To bring the consciousness to goodness. And therefore, the Bhagavatam takes us to this next level beyond these gunas, beyond sattva, which is Suddha sattva, pure goodness, outside of the material realm, not just trying to be in the higher, even in sattva in this world, but be transcending this whole thing altogether. Still bound by karma, we change our choices, and then we give ourselves more free will. We actually have that ability. Shall we continue?
Well, I'm looking at this commentary, Rob, but we got to go into this.
Okay, dive in.
Shall I read it or shall you?
You.
Okay, I'll read the verse again quickly. Whatever you desire, speaking to Vyasadeva, Narada is saying, whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind, as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Purport. Srila Vyasadeva is the editor of all descriptions of the Vedic literatures, and thus he has described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by fruit of activities, called karma, speculative knowledge, called jnana, mystic power, which sometimes is called yoga, trying to get the mystic cities, and devotional service, which is called bhakti. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many different demigods in different forms and names. Okay? The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. He gave too much information. He gave people too many baby steps, and people can't figure out what's what anymore. Srila Narada is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva And thus he is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else, which is exactly what you were describing, what Prabhupada does commonly in his translations. Right? The Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. Pouring water on the root is the right process to water the tree, as much as feeding the stomach supplies energy to all parts of the body. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavad Purana, because a slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. If a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansions of the ideas separate from the absolute truth personality of Godhead? The most effective part of worshiping demigods is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism. In other words, if I wanted to get you to stop being selfish and I recommended, hey, worship the sun because the sun provides the heat and all the food that you get, then you might begin to think, well, the sun is one God and there's also another God for the rain, and there's millions of gods and they're all equal, but you never connect with your divine root, which is the source of all of them as well. And so in any case, this commentary is trying to help us understand that Vyasadeva is being instructed by his guru. You've given too much information and people are confused. Focus it on the root. Bring it to bhakti. Connect people with their divine root, who comes in the form of Sri Krishna.
Powerful stuff. This is why sometimes these astrological readings that people get, they can just send you on almost like a wild goose chase. If you've ever had to chase a goose.
Do you just chase geese there at home?
You can't catch them.
Is it wild?
It's a wild experience, that's for sure. But it's sort of like, and I had to deal with this because we went to see the mystic when we were in Vrindavan. Okay. And the mystic is an astrologer, and he's a pretty interesting guy. He's a mind reader and some other stuff. But, and some of the stuff he's right on, it was helpful and useful. But sometimes you get to these astrologers, and they're giving you information where you've got to start worshiping Surya, you got to start, marrying a tree, you got to start, whatever, some type of super extracurricular thing you have to do for your spiritual life. And sometimes it's such a detour of the stuff that we teach and that we study. And I felt like, and I had to say this to Mara too, because Mara had this instruction of a massive detour. And I felt like, and I don't think she'll mind me saying this, I sat down with her. I was like, Mara, don't sweat it. You're doing everything great.
She is.
You're doing everything great. Mara's great. And she gets all the blessings. People love her and people appreciate her and the whole community.
She serves with humility. That's what it's all about. That's where it's all meant to go.
She wants to, yeah, she's kind. So the thing is, she may not get all of her material things worked out perfectly. Guess what? No one's gonna. That's part of having a material body and a material life. We have things, we lose things. You get something, you don't get everything. It's just but I feel like for the most part, we're all here focused. We're trying to reconnect. We're not trying to even if we have some material desires, they're not the focus of our life.
Yeah.
At least for the people listening on a regular basis, I think it's safe to say things like this. But anyway, sometimes you have to take those things with a grain of salt. It's a massive detour from what we're pushing, which is life is short. Where are we going with this? How can I best apply spiritual truths to my life so that I can live a more fulfilling spiritual life instead of just a pious materialist?
Well, if we look at the last sentence of this commentary, it mentions that the diverted mind, just like you were just talking about, I see a mystic or I get involved in worship of many different devas or whatever. The diverted mind can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of the selection of object. I forget where the focus is. That ultimately there's a divine root and I'm meant to connect with that root. I get confused and I start connecting with so many other things.
Okay. Should we continue?
Yes, please.
That was verse 15, right?
That was verse 14.
14. Okay. I'm doing this on my phone. That's why I'm a little confused. Okay. the people in general are naturally, here we go again. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy. By the way, when they say something like that, if you're new to this, you can be like, well, what's wrong with that? Because the idea of the idea is that enjoyment is problematic because it's temporary. Whereas the Bhakti yoga, we want something more than just like, it's fun. We want something a little deeper. So the people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy. And you have encouraged them that in a way in the name of religion. So he's saying you've created a ways to even appropriately enjoy the material world. Use it in a communion with sort of like higher beings or your source. Give you some like metaphysical rebate. Oh, I like that. Metaphysical rebate. Like that.
It's like this, Raghu. If I want to get you to be religious, well, let me show how you can use religion to enjoy the things of the material world.
Right.
That's the first step. But then you get confused and you think that enjoyment is the entire purpose of it all. Right.
Because that in itself is like a long, complicated road. I mean, you just hang out with an astrologer, you got to wear this ring. You got to worship this God. You got to do this puja. And then you'll be happy. Will I be spiritual? No, you're just trying to get to like evenness, get all that crazy out of your life. Okay, let me go on. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. I'm just going to skip down a sentence. The human beings, by long material association, life after life, have a natural inclination by practice to endeavor to lord it over the material energy. There's no sense of the responsibility of the human life. There's a responsibility here. We actually have something to do while we're here. This human form of life is a chance to
even that word, just interesting, Raghu. Just the word responsibility, meaning that you have the ability to respond to the circumstances that you're in. When you don't have that as an animal.
Sure.
As an animal, you respond according to what the body demands completely.
Now, by the way, I've heard that is taught, although I think there is. Okay, I'm not going to get into that.
What?
That's the Vedic teachings, but I find that different animals have a little bit more free will. I don't know. That's a good question.
In general, at the very least,
animals can act in a noble way.
I'm not saying that
like
they
there's
can't,
so many stories of a turtle saving someone's life, a sea turtle, or a dog risking.
What are you
his
talking
life
about? Turtle saving someone's life?
I just read it. Someone was drowning, a boat capsized, and a sea turtle saved the person.
Okay,
read that.
In general, that the animal has less responsibility.
Yes.
In general, the animal is going to have less ability. It's going to be more prone to act according to the dictation of the senses. Whereas the human being has that chance to say, I have the ability to choose my response. I have responsibility. And therefore, let me use this. Instead of just trying to enjoy the material senses, even in a religious way, even in a pious way, even a more effective way, there's something more to life. And I have the ability to respond to my circumstances in that way, the ability to choose my response, as the DTS say.
It's such a great way to put that, huh? To get out, this human form of life is a chance to get out of the clutches of material energy. We are in the clutches of material energy. So nicely put, isn't it?
Yeah.
To revolve the cycle of transmigration in a series of lives numbering 8,400,000 is an imprisoned life for the condemned, conditioned soul. Now, that sounds sort of heavy, but condemn means like we don't even know what to do. Just running around thinking that I can control my good fortune or bad fortune. If you've ever got this, I tell you this because if you've ever got your Jyotish done and you've done it well, your astrological chart, It's sort of like I can look back at my chart and it's almost done as if I'm reading my own autobiography. Yes, and then you'll experience loss and then incredible amounts of gain, and then you'll experience great travel. It's like, yep, that's when that happened. That's when that happened. That's when that happened. And we're under this illusion that I'm choosing when we're actually on that airline and we can't get off. And we're thinking we're actually steering the plane. Anyway, it just goes to prove that we have a circumstance and we have the ability to change how we react to the circumstance. We may not be able to change the destination or our karma, but I can change how I react to that karma. And I think that's one of the things that we sort of push on the show, how to change our reactions to things and how to see the blessing in even a bad situation. There you go. All right. Continuing on, my friend.
Yeah.
The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through the descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Lord.
So you showed people how to enjoy materially, but that becomes a disqualification of going still higher. So get them focused on the right point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next verse. One who has forsaken his material occupations. That's a dharma, the word dharma. One who has forsaken their dharma to engage in bhakti may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of them being unsuccessful. On the other hand, one not connected to divinity, though fully engaged in dharma, does not gain it.
It's like it's like when a lawyer gives a whole argument and then concludes with like just one final point that just like smashes everything. He's saying here that you've shown people a material way of life that can give them, through religious piety, that can give them some material enjoyment. But even if you're totally successful in that, in the end, you gain nothing. Whereas if you point people towards connecting with God, even if they screw up again and again, it's still a safe position, because in the end, it's all about, on that path, it's all about your sincerity. So even if you screw it up, even if you fail, you win. Whereas in the other path, even if you succeed, you lose. It's just showing the superiority of practicing bhakti, saying, I want to reconnect with God. I want to give my life. That it's always safe. It's always successful. Whereas if I say, I want to rig the material world and make it work for my material enjoyment and live separately from God, even if you succeed, you fail, because you lose it all anyway.
Because ultimately it's like Dharmasvanistita Punsham Vishvakshena Katoshi. It's like the Bhagavatam starts like this too. In our dharma, why we are good in this world, why we are pious, why we are ethical, why we have a concept of right and wrong. All that is to bring us to connection, to devotion. If we are just responsible, but ultimately I couldn't care about it, there is nothing, there's just, then really just, it's just a type of like humanitarian, like selfishness. I just want to be happy. This makes me happy. That's why I do it. But all of our dharma, I mean, you have these things like you could be dharmic, you could be responsible, you could be not cheat on your husband or your wife, not gamble away your money, not beat your kids. But if you have no love, what good is it? Responsibility without love and devotion and connection is a useless waste of time. I need my phone. Kid, come on. This is my book. I have no Bhagavatam today. Okay, I'm going to go on. Okay, this is text.
18.
Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in due course of time, just as in due course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not even desire them. All right, first of all, we got to break this thing apart.
Yeah.
Because if you're new to this and you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Higher planets, Brahmaloka. So the idea is that, and if this is too far-fetched to believe, first of all, I'm going to say how they explain it. There's high
Can't
planets.
hear you, Raghu.
You can't hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
Were you just moving your mouth? Not talking. Were you doing that to us?
All right, so this is how the Vedic cosmology looks. There's higher planets where enjoyment is very high. Some yogic traditions want to leave this body, leave this world, and go to higher planets and enjoy material world. One of the high planets is called Brahmaloka. Then there's lowish, painful planets of suffering called Patala. Patala is a region. It's not even one planet. It's a region of many other planets. We live on a planet like Earth, which has both good and bad. If this whole thing sounds too mythological, look at it in this world. There's people in this world who live in these like incredible, these places like Monaco or Nice or these and the Riviera, or they have so much types of money, so much billions of dollars. It costs $40,000 to fill up their yacht. It's like this is how some people live. And they contact, okay, well, here's I'm going to give you a pinpoint on the map where I want my yacht to meet me. My helicopter will fly me in there. They have so much resources in this world to enjoy the material world. And then there's a guy homeless, sleeping on the streets. The material world is filled with the 1% of haves that have material enjoyment. And then the people that just have not and are suffering, the refugees, they're, prostitutes not by choice, they're caught up in human trafficking, the whole, like a painful existence. They're saying from the highest planet to the lowest planet. Look at it mythologically, or look at it supernaturally, or look at it on our very own planet. They're all places of suffering. Why? Because they're temporary. They're all places of suffering. So even if there's something that you love here, it's temporary. You're going to lose it anyway. And getting back to that first 1 second. Persons who are actually intelligent, philosophically inclined, should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet down to the lowest planet. Meaning, you're looking all over the universe for some type of lasting happiness. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find it on a particular vacation. You might find a cool place to visit. Yes, go to Yosemite. It's cool. But it's not going to find that eternal connection in the heart. That we're looking for, you can't find without, or you got to find it within. That's where we're going for this. And as far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, that is obtained automatically due to your karma. Just in the course of time, we obtain miseries, even though we do not endeavor for them. How many people endeavor for a broken arm? Let's go ahead and break our arms today. That'd be great. Nobody. But sometimes we go out and we break our arms. They're saying the same way you go out and endeavor, or don't endeavor for a broken arm, but you get it, in the same way happiness will come, whether we endeavor for it or not. We've all had the experience where we have no plans, nothing on Saturday night to do, no one wants to date me, yet I had a great time. Or we've had an experience where, like, yeah, we went to a honeymoon, or we went to some holiday, and I planned this trip, and I had the perfect hotel, and I got food poisoning, and it was miserable. Or I had a lousy time. I fought with my husband. I fought with my wife, or one of my kids got sick, or something like that. So we can try to control the material universe, but this happiness and distress come by its own accord. Kaustubha.
Yeah.
Baton, run with this now.
Well, we put up some few weeks back on our Instagram page, and I think on our Facebook page too, a quote.
Oh, yes. I like that
And,
quote.
and it was more or less based on this verse that we just read. And it goes like this: just as suffering comes without us planning or working for it, similarly, happiness also comes of its own accord. Yet we spend our lives making plans to find happiness through sense gratification. A wise person gives up the pursuit of material happiness. And that's what is being stressed here by Narada in this verse. That one doesn't need to, you've given people all kinds of ways to pursue material happiness. In the end, that comes automatically, in a balance of happiness and suffering for people anyway. Better that you just get people focused on what's most important. Get them focused on their spiritual life. Give people the idea to accept whatever happiness comes automatically, to accept whatever suffering comes automatically, and to focus on the real goal in life, to reconnect ourselves with that divine source.
That's it. So this is what, just to clarify things, this is what the Bhagavatam teaches. Now you'll also get into, and people do all the time, they get into things like Vedic music, mantras, astrology, Shilpa Shastra, architecture, art, pujas,
Palmistry,
perhaps. They're all interesting. It's all interesting things that most of this world has no clue about this stuff. But it can be diversions in the same way materialism can be a diversion as well. It's just sort of like mystical diversions. But if all those things can be used in your bhakti as well, you don't have to throw them out. All those things we just mentioned can be used in your bhakti.
Right.
They're meant to push the car forward. It's okay if you know about your car, how to fix your car, how to change the oil, etc. But you still got to get to the goal, or else we're wasting time. And life is short.
What do they say? You don't see the forest because of the trees, right?
Right.
You get caught up in all this Vedic stuff, and you forget where it's all meant to lead. And ultimately, where does it lead? To the lotus feet of sweet baby Krishna.
Lotus feet? Okay.
Raghu, you should have cranked up the music by now. We're 2 minutes over.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's why I need Mara.
You got it?
My wife is yelling, it's a full moon. It's not. It's the 14th day. Today it's 14th, 15th day. Today's the day. My wife says, today's the day. I guess it really depends. There's a huge, massive moon out there. Everybody look out the window. All right. I'm sorry. I don't have the song in place. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Wait a second, my girl. It's Jai Shri Krishna. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us on the podcast. Mara, you got to get back here. I can't do this.
Mara, help. Come back, Mara.
Jai Shri Krishna is the closing song. I got my daughter here. She's in training. She's going to take Mara's place. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay.
Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. We are back on the show.
Wonderful to see everybody's faces. Wonderful to kind of get up. I'm not really I don't know when I got up. I'm on this weird jet lag thing, but
we're leaving our jet lag. If you're new to the podcast, welcome to us. This is how we do it. It's an hour every day. It's a little bit of a little bit of a sacrifice of our day. There's a great return on investment. Kaustubha?
Yes.
Nothing. You're wonderful.
You too. You.
And everybody in Zoom. Yeah, if you want to join us, Wisdom of the Sages at Gmail. Wisdom of the Sages 101 at gmail.com. Thanks for everybody who joined late. It picked up towards the end. More and more people joined.
Thanks to Aditi for her appearance today.
Yeah, thanks Aditi. That was nice. And all that great information. Sorry if I laughed too hard. I didn't mean to. It was funny. Good to see you, Robin. Good to see you, Sri Rupaji. And everybody, and Roya, Brickshit, Patricia, everybody I missed. Okay. Why? I think the music's not loud. That's why I'm not clapping. There's my Hannibal store for Fabio. Fabio is one of our others. got to give a shout out right now. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks, Sachi. Bolo Jai Radhe.
Namaste, Prabhu.
What people watching? Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe.